Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's another edition of This Week in the ACCC. I'm Robert Williamson. Here's what we talk about this week. After the holiday season, that lull in action, it's about to heat up again. And as a matter of fact, already some games played this week. We'll update you on those games. Take a look at the standings going into conference play in both the North and South Division of the ACCC. And the brand new NJCAA basketball polls are out. That and a make good game of the week, and it's a good one coming up. We'll talk about it all right here on This Week in the ACCC. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. This week in the ACCC, I'm Robert Williamson. I mentioned that the games are back underway. Kind of a light schedule this week, but it is back to basketball nonetheless. We'll start with women's basketball. Take a look at who did what this week, also the standings and the polls. First of all, the Why We Play Classic. Well, it wasn't particularly kind to Southern Union as they lose to Andrew College by a final of 86-64. Enterprise State losing to Alabama Southern 92-63. The final in that one, Alabama Southern had 5 double-digit scores. It was Chattahoochee Valley coming away with a 79-52 win over Faulkner State. Kelsey Towns coming off the bench, scoring 20 in a winning way for the Pirates. And it was a victory for Bishop State Community College over Wallace State Selma, 70-64 the final. Bishop State had built a 9-point lead by halftime. They wind up winning it by 6. Well, let's take a look at the standings where teams are currently in the ACCC. You see there in the North Division, still atop the standings despite a couple of losses between the holidays, is Shelton State. Lawson State, Sneed State follow, and there are the remainder of the squads in the North. And in the South, it is Chattahoochee Valley, which is currently the number 1 team. Of course, conference play just underway in the South. Will get underway next week in the North. And, of course, following Chat Valley, you've got Alabama Southern, you've got Bishop State, and the rest of the South Division, which, by the way, makes for an outstanding matchup in today's ACCC Game of the Week. It's the number 1 team out of the South in ladies basketball against the number 1 team out of the North. Maybe a good idea of what the state tournament will be like at Lawson State in March. How about those latest NJCAA basketball polls for the ladies? They're still atop the standings, a team that really stays atop the standings year in, year out. Gulf Coast State, which has gone by other names and other monikers during the course of their lifetime, still number 1 in the nation. Odessa number 2. Chipola out of the Panhandle Conference, another squad out of the Panhandle of Florida, 3. Seward County 4. South Plains is the number 5 team. Of course, the men's South Plains team are number 1 in the nation. The only ACCC squad, Shelton State. They were 4 prior to the holidays, absorbed those 2 holiday losses, and dropped to number 13 in the country. But there you see the top 25 in its entirety. Not just 5, not just the ACCC. All the top 25 teams in the nation. Well, that does it for the ladies' side of This Week in the ACCC. We've got to get to the men and how they have fared on the hardwood and what their standings and polls look like. We'll do that after the break. This is This Week in the ACCC.
Midfield kicks it in, 40, got one guy to
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to This Week in the ACCC. We've already talked about the ladies. Let's talk about the men who get back to the basketball after the holidays as well. Being a home team, primarily kind to teams this week. Of the 4 games played, 3 home teams win it. The lone exception was Faulkner State's 82-76 win over Chattahoochee Valley. They got 25 from Keon Brown, did the Sun Chiefs, in the victory. Jefferson Davis, a 68-64 winner over LBW. LBW hit just 37% of their free throws in that 4-point loss. It was Alabama Southern, an 89-78 winner over Enterprise State with a victory. Alabama Southern, which we saw earlier in the year on the ACCC Sports Network, has now climbed to the 500 mark. They are 7-7. And Bishop State knocking off Wallace Selma by a final of 72-69. With that victory by Bishop State, they find themselves at 2-0 in conference play, currently atop the South Division in the ACCC. Speaking of divisions, let's take a look at the divisions, both the North and South. In the North, you've got Marion Military Institute. They won it all a year ago, went to Hutchinson representing Region 17. I'll make that 22 1 year ago. Well, they're still atop the standings with an 11-1 mark. Shelton State not far behind, and as a matter of fact, how they are faring in the North Division has got an impact on how they are faring in the national polls, which we will get to in a moment. Then as you head down to the South Division, actually the best winning percentage is a team that you're going to see today, Chad Valley. But because of their conference play at a 2-0 record, Bishop State is actually the #1 team currently in that South Division. What about the NJCAA polls for the men? Well, the last poll released was just prior to the Christmas holidays. It was about 3 weeks back. So quite a bit has changed over the course of 3 weeks. Still got the same #1 team in the nation. And as a matter of fact, the 2 and 3 teams too. South Plains 1, Hutchinson 2, Georgia Highlands, which came over to Alabama and faced Gadsden State. That too a game on the ACCC Sports Network just about a month ago. They are the #3 team in the nation. Moberly area is 4, San Jacinto Central 5. Those are all unbeaten teams. How about teams in the ACCC? Shelton State lost over the holidays and they dropped to 23, but Marion Military continues to win and they climbed to 20. There you have it. The polls 1-25 in the NJCAA. When we come back, let's talk about a game that we will bring to you here in really just a matter of moments, or it could be, depending on when you're watching this week in the ACCC, could be underway. That matchup and what's coming up next week, right after the break. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to This Week in the ACCC, our final segment of the show when we talk about the matchup today. It's a make-good. It actually is a make-up for a game that we originally had planned for last week when Wallace State Hansville was to have taken on USC Salkehatchie. That game actually was played, originally scheduled, then canceled, then rescheduled, but because of all the weather issues, our coverage canned. So this game was added, and what a great game. Chat Valley taking on Shelton State. On the women's side, which is first at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you got the top 2 teams from each division. And on the men's side, you've got the #1 team from a winning percentage standpoint out of the South, Chat Valley, against the #2 team out of the North in Shelton State. So today's game should be a good one. And the ACCC Game of the Week on Thursday, the regularly scheduled one, also featuring the Buccaneers as they travel to Wallace State Hansville to take on their big-time rival, the Lions of Wallace State. So you'll want to catch that on Thursday right here on the ACCC Sports Network. Hey, don't forget about liking us on Facebook, following us on Twitter, and of course, you are always going to want to come back to the network. Find out what we're bringing you. Not far away from the start of softball, which begins on the 27th, baseball on the first day of February. So the sports just keep coming here on the ACCC Sports Network. Thanks for watching this week's edition. I'm Robert Williamson. James Crenshaw has been your executive producer. We'll see you next week on This Week in the ACCC.